Hello, everyone. So there will be no, as I like to call them, twisting matches on the show today, which is like my definition of a twisting match is when two Twitter people go after each other, and everyone just gets wet from it. Funny stuff, though. I mean,
it's like the schoolyard thing. You know what it is? It's the equivalent of the schoolyard fight where everybody's on one side or the other yelling, fight, fight, fight. That's what it is.
Yeah. No, it's so
true. You're doing it at home or you're doing it remotely.
I know. It's really, it's just so funny because this is one particular situation that I've been like with my entire life and on top of. I feel like since I've done hockey, I've been on this Nashville thing and knowing. And it's just, and I've seen how few people really have ever given a rat's, anything about it. And yeah, now, and it's been a great hockey city for a long time, and it's not, and it's great. I mean, what we're seeing now is obviously they've got, they're like a band with a hit song right now, so they're really popular. Yeah. But this place has always been pretty amazing, and believe me, there were people who ripped it to shreds year in year out, and should they not rip it to shreds just because they made the Stanley Cup Finals? I don't really think that matters. I don't think that plays into it.
As I said on Friday, because I cover a team in a Canadian market. I'm a former fan of a team in a Canadian market, and I have sympathy for Canadian markets who love the game and want NHL hockey in their cities. And I think a team like our city, like Quebec City, deserves to get an NHL team, but not at the cost of viable markets in the U.S. And I think that the rush to judgment years and years ago about Nashville, not being an NHL market. Well, it's tough to determine whether it's an NHL market when the team is not good. And up to that point, they were okay. I mean, they were competitive, but they didn't make the playoffs, or they made the playoffs. They were out in the first round. Success breeds success.
It does. I'll say this. My first time, and so far my only time in Nashville, was back at the 2003 draft, which is still the best draft I ever covered talent-wise. And we had fun. It was a great city. We knew it was great then. The problem always was with Nashville was just with the ownership. It was never with the fans. It was always with the ownership and the uneasiness about that. But look, they're drawing more fans than Ottawa now. And I think people in Canada can't deal with that. Well, that's the problem.
And Russ, you stole my point, because the thing that came out a couple days ago or yesterday about I think it's like 1,500 seats or 2,000 seats being available at Canadian Tire Center for Game 6 of an Eastern Conference Final. I don't care if the arena is 25 miles outside of Ottawa. I don't care if it's in the middle of nowhere. If it was Game 6 of an Eastern Conference Final in Toronto and it was being played at Rogers Center with 55, 60,000 seats, there wouldn't be one seat available, and the secondary market would be insane. It'd be the same in Buffalo. It'd be the same in a number of different markets in the U.S. and Canada.
I mean, come on. I've been to that city 3 times at least, maybe 4. I've driven there. If I could get there from southern New Jersey, other people can get there. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I get the whole thing, and this is downtown and everything like that, and that's great. It's really just kind of ridiculous that we have these discussions. I mean, the bottom line here is that you can't judge an NHL city for a long time. Like, you can't sit back and say, yeah, it takes almost like a generation to go through, whatever that would be, to really see the results of what's happening right now. Like, I heard a really great interview. I think it was on XM the other day, where they were talking about attendance for youth sports in Canada, and right now, baseball is way up and soccer is way down, and that's kind of a trend that's been bucking. Like, soccer's been getting more and more attendance every year. Baseball's been getting less and less all throughout the North America. I mean, I know in the United States that's very much the case that soccer has more attendance and baseball is going down. But why is that the case in Toronto? Well, Toronto, the Blue Jays have been good. When the Blue Jays are good, people, kids want to get in and start. They want to play baseball.
Yeah,
but it takes time for that to develop through, that to play its way out.
But I know the Toronto FC has been very successful, and they reached basically the Stanley Cup final of the MLS. So, and the Blue Jays, it's not as popular this year because they're not as good this year. So you can go out and StubHub and get tickets in the upper deck for $5, which I'm going to do when the Yankees come to town. So I mean, everything is cyclical, but I think the thing is that, and there is some validity to the Canadian market's argument that teams like Arizona, which have been on the ropes for years.
Arizona is on the ropes. There's no question.
Yeah, and Florida to a greater or lesser extent.
Florida is on the ropes. There's no denying it.
Yeah, now they're getting state money, and that's propping them up a little bit. But I think that I know a city like Quebec City, or maybe even, there have been skeptics that said Hamilton couldn't support an NHL team. Yes, they could. They could.
Okay,
but I don't think,
what about Tampa, Mike? Like, I've been to Tampa. I covered all those Cup games. I think Tampa's fine, and I think Tampa, for whatever reason, and I can't give you a good reason. Why does it work in Tampa and not in Florida or Sun?
I can tell you exactly why. I can tell you because I spend a lot of time in Tampa. That's where
so what's the reason?
It's the age difference. Like Tampa is a very young crowd. Like, it's a very when you go there, the area where they put that stadium in Tampa is where is where all the hipsters live. Like that's the place. That is like putting it in Soho essentially. And it's really cool. It's really great, and it's a fun place to go. There's a lot more on the west coast of Florida in that area. You have a lot more of a young, vibrant community than the East Coast, which is older transplants, more transplanted people. And,
so if you
Lightning have won a Stanley Cup, and you can't get around that either. I mean, that does change a city.
The Panthers
won a Stanley Cup. Go ahead, Mike.
The Panthers got to a Cup final before the Lightning got to won a Stanley Cup. But I guess if the Panthers want success, they just have to offer a free continental breakfast or some oatmeal.
No, but Carolina won a Cup, and it's not doing much better these days either.
Right, but that's ownership based too. I mean, the Carmano
and
situation.
it usually is. And to be honest, it usually is ownership based.
Yeah, and there have been 3 good owners in Tampa, even though they've gotten ripped. The owners have been actually 3 very good quality. I mean, the one Vinnick now obviously hasn't gotten ripped too much. He's been great. Coolest before that was really good. He did everything he could do. He got screwed in a lot of different situations because of partners that backed out on him at the last minute and stuff like that, where he had to do it on his own. But he was really, really good.
And Bill Davidson? Wasn't it Bill Davidson?
Yeah, like the Esposito group, basically. I always think of them as. But yeah.
No, Davidson was Columbus.
Okay. I thought it was whoever owned the Pistons also owned the Tampa Bay Lightning for a time. I thought it was, but anyway.
Oh, he may have owned a piece of the Lightning before.
Yeah,
he did.
I'm pretty sure he did.
And and in Nashville, it really wasn't the ownership issues as well. Like, I mean, it's to sit back. I mean, Craig Leopold was an amazing owner for the city of Nashville, and really, put everything in and basically let that team. I mean, the reason David Poile is still there, that comes right out of the fact that that Ludwig let it happen. Now, at the end of the day, he couldn't do it anymore. I mean, it was a tough market, and it was a tough place to sort of survive in. And he and he moved on to Minnesota, but not without setting the Predators up, and selling them to a situation that was good for the city. Like he could have done it a lot of different ways. He could have sold it to a place that would have moved it. He sold it to the right people.
Yeah. See, the thing was, and then we can get off of this and get to the game itself, but is the fact that Jim Balsillie parachuted in and tried to steal that franchise.
Yes.
And the way it was done was the crux of the problem. There are more Canadian markets that deserve the NHL. I don't think a second team in Toronto
is a hostile takeover, Mike. It wasn't like
Right. I mean, I'm saying it was like he in the middle of the night he tried to steal that team away.
Yeah.
And I think you can't do it that way. If there's genuine lack of support, you can say, okay, this isn't working here, like in Arizona. And after years and years of things not working, if you try to say, okay, we're going to try something else, that's acceptable. But in this situation, it was sort of like you said, a hostile takeover. And I think Nashville would have really been. I mean, it would have created a really bad situation for the NHL if that had happened. And I think that's what all this acrimony is about Nashville not being or being an NHL team,
and we'd be laughing at it now because he would have had like 100-year naming rights deal for BlackBerry, and would be the BlackBerry Center forever, and we would just be snickering at that every time.
They were bankrupt.
About Balsillie, when that was going down, BlackBerry was going down as well. So I mean, that was a tough situation. He absolutely wanted a team. I've talked to him. He's a good guy. He wants to actually. I thought it would be great to have Jim Balsillie as an owner in the NHL. I really did because But the problem is he just never wanted to do it the right way, and
right.
No matter how many people told him who knew him that there's a way that you can do this, that you will absolutely be the owner of a team.
Yep.
He refused to do that and continued to do this. I mean, it's not like Craig Leopold was trying to sell the team to Jim Balsillie. That wasn't happening. It basically, you know, and I can vouch for that because I went down there way back when 10 years ago, like we talked about with Paul the other day. And I got picked up by Craig Leopold at the airport to drive me to this thing where we were actually trying to raise enough season tickets to fight off this hostile takeover. Essentially, is what was happening.
Yeah.
So, and there's a reason that one of Gary Bettman's most trusted people is Craig Leopold. And there's no question that is the case. And you'll hear, I mean, even GMs who come through, you know, when a team needs a GM, there's a group of people at the NHL who are, you know, they will go to and they'll say, who could you guys recommend? Craig's on that committee. I mean, there's people he's a very important person in the NHL, and you know what he's done in Minnesota has been great as well. I'm sure that last night was bittersweet for him in a lot of ways. I haven't talked to him, but I think that, you know, I do know that without him, there's never a team in that city in the first place, and there's never and if he doesn't sell to the right people, which he did very specifically, you know, probably taking even a little less money to sell to the right ownership group, that Nashville doesn't still thrive. I mean, back when he was doing it, I remember the big issue was that they couldn't sell any of the boxes. They couldn't get to the enterprise. The music part of Music City was not embracing the Predators. That was the problem. And you know, they were selling tickets to fans, but they weren't getting the big super boxes and things like that. They weren't getting those big. And now, so when you see them bring out these artists and stuff like that, I can't help but think that, okay, this is part of this whole long relationship that plays into the fact that Nashville needs the music scene to like Nashville. Like they need the music and the record companies and stuff like that to get involved, because that is the business in that town. So, you know, if you want to buy one,
that it is clicking now at a time where the Titans are actually on the way up, because for a little while the Titans stunk and they just owned the town. But, you know, they now have Marcus Mariota, and in another year or two, they're going to be a playoff team. And it still seems like Nashville's, you know, the Predators are number one in that town, and that's impressive to me.
Yeah, and they really are. And it's just, I do remember, and people criticize, you know, I have a good friend who's a Columbus Blue Jackets fan who lived in Nashville for a while, who criticized and said, you know, those fans don't know what they're talking about there. They cheer the wrong things. And early on, that was definitely the case, because they were always into it. They were willing to learn. They were willing to deal with it. They weren't tough people. And now I see so many reporters jumping on the bandwagon, and I get it. I mean, and I'm fine with it. And people are like, oh, you know, I'm not, because the thing about the people of Nashville, and then we'll get on to the game, has always been to me that they are okay with you jumping on the bandwagon. These aren't like a group of really like, oh, you know, you got to, you know, how dare you like the Predators now, you know, when you haven't liked the Predators forever. They just like their Preds, and they're very welcoming to anybody. So it's really not a situation. I mean, Carolina was the same way. So
yeah, Carolina was definitely the same way.
And you know, and they you know had success. And that Game 7 that I went to there for the Stanley Cup final still might have been one of the most exciting arenas I've ever been in. And I mean, literally, they followed over the whole, you know, Duke North Carolina basketball tradition of standing for the entire game. I've never seen an audience, you know, in a hockey game stand for an entire game like they did in Game 7 in Carolina. I mean, they never sat down. So it was incredible. And you know, you saw a lot of that last night in Nashville. Now let's get to the game. By the way, today, welcome Hockey World. Today is May 23rd, 2017.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you, every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And we settled in for the game last night, and you know, the whole crowd here, the whole family was involved and fired up to see it. And man, the Preds got off to that great start, and then from that point on, after the first 5 minutes of that game, basically the 5-minute power play the Predators got was the beginning of the end for them. I mean, that was really from that point on, it was all Ducks.
It was a weird game because we were all led to believe that Gibson would be in net, and he wasn't. And when Bernier gave up those couple quick ones, you were like, uh-oh, he's really not up to the task. And the way that game went, every time the Ducks wrestled back the lead, not the lead, but really the momentum. They never had the lead. But every time they were right there, right on the cusp, Bernier would give up another goal. And it was just one of those things where we probably all wish, except for the Predators, what would happen if Gibson was in there to see what kind of game it was. But I give Laviolette credit because he really fired up that group. Mm-hmm. And I can make this announcement now. Colton Sissons will never have another hat trick in the playoffs ever. But it was just like one of those nights. It just, it's one of those nights where things went in for him, and Pekka Rinne was the star. Like, there was no question. You could say, hey, Colton Sissons had the hat trick, but they don't win that game without Pekka Rinne, because he was just getting killed at times. And at times, I felt like he was still a little tired, but he battled through that, and I was impressed.
Yeah. Randy Carlisle should definitely take Jonathan Bernier off of his Christmas card list, because Jonathan Bernier has not only cost him one of the premier coaching jobs in the NHL in Toronto, but he's also cost him a second chance at a Stanley Cup final. Because honestly, I congratulate Nashville for winning this series in 6 games, but as Andrew Cogliano said after the game, we lost to an inferior team. And I think that's, I'm not saying, they won, but Jonathan Bernier was a sieve in the second and third period of Game 5, and then allows 2 goals on the first 3 shots in Game 6. And then when Anaheim has dominated the last part of the first period and the entire second period, gives up the goal to make it 3-1 in the third, and then Anaheim comes back again and scores 2. I mean, they dominated 2/3 of that game. And Bernier gives up that goal to Sissons with, I think it was 6 minutes left to go. And how many times can a team come back when their goaltender can't stop a shot?
Right.
That was probably the best goal, though. I mean, that was a tough save. I mean, that I think goes in on anybody.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But
the third Sissons goal, but the first goal and the second
goal was just awful, and it set a tone.
It did, and it could. I mean, what was amazing is all these AHL players, playing out there, and you're looking at this team and you're thinking, man, you could throw on. It feels like you could throw 10 teams in the NHL that would take apart this Predators team right now, but they're on the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. It's just the way it goes. And I really don't like Cogliano coming out and saying something like that. I think it's kind of classless in a lot of ways, and.
It's an excuse, and like I said, I'm not going to take anything away from Nashville, because they scored more goals. They won 4 games. They are the Western Conference champions. They're going to the Stanley Cup final. But I mean, I think that the fact that Gibson, when they were leading in game, when Gibson left after the first period in Game 5, they were leading 1-0, and Anaheim was dominating that game, and then it slowly went towards Nashville, tying the game and then winning it late in the third. Pontus Aberg and Colton Sissons are kicking your butt, and not because Sissons was reenacting Wayne Gretzky in Game 7 of *93. It was the fact that Jonathan Bernier couldn't stop a beach ball, and it's like. And it's been like that with Bernier ever since his first year in Toronto, and he got hurt. And he never came back to be the goaltender he was in that first year in Toronto. He had a great record this year. I think he was 21-7-4 during the regular season. But in the instances he came in for Anaheim during this playoff, he didn't play very well. And it's a miracle that he's in the 10th year of his NHL career, and last night was the first time he ever started a playoff game. And let me just say, probably the last time he starts a playoff game.
Yeah, I'll tell you the unsung hero for the organization. We always give David Poile credit, and it's easy to give, Fenton credit, and these are the guys up front. But Jeff Keelty's been there for 10 years. And remarkably, I just looked and saw his age is 41. If Jeff is listening, I'm really pissed off at that. He's been, how could he have this position and only be 41 and be very successful? Because he's really good. He's come on our show a million times. If you go and look at their drafts, you will see so many late round guys that have made it and played in Nashville. It's not even funny. And he's in his 10th year there, and he actually played for the Admirals. And so, you think about it, that's a really important guy who probably could have had other positions in other places already, but yet he has stayed there too. And so I give Keelty a lot of credit.
The scouting, has been phenomenal, and they really do scout from all around the world. This is a team that they have a very wide range of, look at Fiala's Swiss, right? And they just have.
I think Pekka Rinne is the best example of like pulling a gem, because I'll be honest, I didn't know much about Pekka Rinne. Now, people are saying, well, what about Pontus Aberg? I knew a lot about Pontus Aberg. I knew a lot about Colton Sissons. A lot of these, but Pekka Rinne? I didn't know a lot about Pekka Rinne. Who did?
Yeah, Right, and he always turned into one of the best coaches, and now he's got a chance to win a Stanley Cup. I mean, it is kind of it's very storybookish. It's like they're making their DVD as they go. Like the way all these games are going, and you can and Gibson wasn't in there last night, but Gibson was in there for the first 3 losses. And
Right.
and as we can say that last night, okay, they don't play as well with Gibson's in there, but it's so difficult to throw that. The Predators don't.
I don't know what the outcome would be. All I know is it would have been a better game with Gibson. I know that.
Here's the thing, though. I think that what really did affect the Preds was the fact that the Preds were thriving in this whole playoffs on getting lots of shots and continually pounding people. And last night, I do think that getting those 2 early goals was too quick for them, like that. And I felt like at the time, like they're gonna. Then they settled back. If Gibson's not in there, we probably go back and forth. It's a 1-goal game to the very end, and that's how it goes.
I mean, the fact that they only had 8 shots through 2 periods was more a symptom of them sitting back in the 1-3-1 after being up 2-0 and just defending. And I get that. I mean, I think the shots were like 38-18 or something of that nature. But the thing is, Bernier did not honor the Grant Fuhrer rule of goaltending. It's not how many saves you make; it's at what time you make them. Yeah. He gave up goals at the absolute worst time. Yeah. They're down 2-1 at the beginning of the 3rd period, and he allows that goal between his legs. And and I give Anaheim a whole lot of credit because I thought that was the killer. They come right back. They get the Wagner goal. They get the Perry goal. They tie up the game. And I think the key moment of this game was Nashville's penalty killing. After Yossi had shot the puck over the glass, that 2-minute power play, and right after they killed that one, then that's when Sisson scored the eventual game winner. Anaheim had a couple opportunities, not great ones, in their power play. I think they went 1 for 19 in the series. I mean, that's the difference between winning and losing. But they had the opportunity there to take the lead, and they couldn't. And then Bernier gives up a goal, and that's it.
Here's the funny thing. So in that 2004 draft, the first goalie taken was Al Montoya. We all knew him. He was great for Team USA. The Rangers drafted him. He got all the buzz. In those days, there were 8 rounds. And I guess at that point, they decided to throw out a pick for Pekka Rinne in the 8th round. Like, just think about that. I mean, it's crazy.
8th round.
The best goalies in the league, Lundqvist and Rinne, were taken ridiculously late. And it works out. You never know what's going to happen. Also, last night, I thought that call was goalie interference, and so did Grant Fuhrer. He was really pissed off on Twitter, and I've never seen Grant Fuhrer tweet like that, but he was annoyed as hell.
And that's complete bullcrap because honestly, it was not goaltender interference. Subban knocked Perry down, and Perry was clear of Rinne when the shot came in.
But so it wasn't fully set. Here's the thing. This is the argument here. As a goalie, if you get knocked down, it takes about 2 seconds to get back into position. If you don't think that – if I trip a goalie, he's not going to pop right back up like a jack-in-the-box and be ready for a shot. That's what you're expecting.
I'm a goaltender. What are we going to do now? Put them all in a bubble? I mean, come on.
No, but
this was a good play by Perry, okay, to come in, and he set himself up to interfere with him. I mean, and Subban makes the mistake of putting his stick there and tripping him, but Perry's going into him either way. So, I mean, the fact of the matter is like that. This is what I hate about this rule is that, the natural reaction of Subban is going to be, because he's learned his whole life, that if somebody gets close to your goalie, you're going to try to keep him away. You're going to put a stick on him. You're going to do something. And Perry knows this. So Perry just backs in, and he's going right. He knows exactly what's happening. Yeah. And I agreed that I didn't think that they could call it interference at the time, though, because it was too iffy. And because of Subban, like if Subban doesn't do that, Perry just backs into him, it's interference. And they would have called it. But because Subban, and you can't really blame Subban for that either. This is a really ridiculous rule right now that we have in the NHL. They did set a record last night with a 16.5 rating in Nashville.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Which
is crazy. That's 165,000 households, okay, watching the game. Now, this is a city of 600,000 people. All right, so when you think about the 600,000 people, say there's I don't know, 4 people per house. You're that there's 165,000. That is a huge number. That's an enormous percentage And then you also throw into it, someone pointed this out really clearly, that, there were so many people downtown watching the game in different places, on TVs. And they always complain, we've heard this before. We've had these battles, Mike, you and I, in the years about, oh, you can't show the game in a bar because people aren't going to get your ratings. Well, they did. In Nashville's a perfect example. I mean, this should be brought up forever, that you can get great ratings and still show the thing all over the place and not matter.
Well, I just noticed the Nashville game did better than a rerun of Hee Haw on Antenna TV. That's pretty good.
Well, let's just say this: just as a
apologize for Russ Cohen.
Just as a capper for the Ducks, and we'll be looking at these teams as as the draft and as July 1st comes around. The Ducks, I think they're one of the teams that are going to have decisions to make regarding the expansion draft, because right now they're situated where they could lose a really good young defenseman in either Josh Manson or one of their veterans if they can't get Kevin Bieksa to waive the no move clause. Now, Bieksa played well when he came back, so he's not a guy who I think you want to buy out because he's past it. He still has something to contribute. But if they're going to protect go 7-3-1 in expansion, they're probably going to have to ask Bieksa to waive the no move so he can be exposed. I don't know if Vegas will take a $4 million defenseman for 1 year, but they're going to have to make a decision on whether to trade Manson or trade one of the big three. And, there is some talk about Sami Vatanen being on the market. I can't see them a year after signing him to a long-term extension, them trading Sami Vatanen for like a first-round pick.
Yeah, I can see. He was a little bit under-impressive in this series, though. And I hate to say that, but, the
only reason we're impressed with Manson is because he hit people.
Yeah.
He's not an offensive player. He's a decent defensive player. Yeah. He's a bottom-pairing guy. At the end of the day, Vatanen is worth way more.
Way more. I agree with you completely. I thought Vatanen looked like he was intimidated a little bit by the situation.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair.
But I will say this about Bieksa. That guy deserves nothing at this point, because the ending of that game that Bieksa threw.
Oh, that was cheap. That was
horrible. It was 6 seconds left to go slashing and hacking at guys all over the ice.
And then he came back and shook hands. I was surprised at that. I thought he was going to the locker room and was doing that just because he didn't want to shake hands. He came back out and went in the line and shook hands.
Yeah, I've always thought he was a pretty good guy when I met him before, but I just thought that what he did last night was ridiculous.
The only justification for Anaheim possibly trading Vatanen is them deciding between Vatanen and Fowler, because Fowler has to be signed to a new contract, and if they want to spend the money, they may have to clear the money. And they also have Montour and Theodore. Who I think, at least Montour, I think, is a plus offensive player.
Oh yeah,
he looked really good in this play in this playoff. And remember, he had played spot duty this year with the Ducks. He played mostly in San Diego, so this guy is a player.
He's a player.
There's a lot of people out there, okay, who are very upset that they didn't trade for Cam Fowler last year, because there were a lot of possibilities.
Because Cam Fowler, he was fantastic.
He looks right now like he's an absolute #1 defenseman, and
he could have been a Conn Smythe winner had they won and maybe gone on and won a cup. Like, that's how good Cam Fowler is.
We could have gotten him for like a second-round draft pick last year.
Yeah, which is crazy. Like,
yeah.
Cam Fowler is a $6 million defenseman, and I'll give Bob Murray credit in one respect here. He got Ricard Raquel signed for $3.8 million for another 5 years.
Here's the funny thing about Cam Fowler. So the draft in Philly, the day before, a couple days before, you could interview a lot of the guys, right? And Fowler walks in, and he's got a black eye. And I go up to him, and I said, hey, maybe this will change your image, because everybody's saying you're not tough enough. And he laughed, and he really got a kick out of it. But that was the stupid rhetoric going around that draft. Well, you don't want to draft Cam Fowler because he's soft. He's not soft. And he's a great offensive player. But this is the kind of nonsense that goes on at the draft sometimes.
Yeah. Remember how long it took him for him to get drafted too? I mean, it was pretty crazy. I remember.
He was 10th. I think he got.
Yeah. He was mid first or mid
12th.
It became like it was about to get really uncomfortable like that.
Yeah, actually, the Rangers took McElroy ahead of him, which people who know me incensed me. But I think he was 12th, right? Something like that. I gotta look.
I'm checking.
Yeah, but he had right now, looks every bit, like an absolute #1 defenseman for a team, and he's, there's no way Anaheim's letting him go now. So it's completely
12th overall.
Yeah.
He's got, they have a lot. It does complicate things for Anaheim, because he's going to cost them a lot of money. It is going to affect them big time.
I bet you $6 million.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. But yeah, and so that was something. And so let's move on. So now the Predators sit back and wait. Actually, we did get the Stanley Cup final schedule today.
We've had it for a couple days.
Yeah.
Now we're filling in the blanks.
I didn't know we did. Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah, a couple days ago, yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't start till – we're not starting till Monday. They're taking the weekend off, which is interesting.
Well, Sunday will probably be media day in Pittsburgh.
Sunday will be media day, yeah, for sure. But Saturday, Monday, so –
The one good thing for the NHL is that the NBA final does not start till June the 1st. They're taking a long time. So you're going to get the first 2 games of the Stanley Cup final on the 29th and on the 31st before the NBA. And the NBA will be off for 5 or 6 days at least. So I think that's a good thing for the NHL to get the optimum ratings for, likely a Pittsburgh-Nashville Stanley Cup final.
Well, it goes. It's over the course of 15 days. It's a long. They're taking a long time for this one.
Well, they're gonna give a day in between for every game at least.
But you have you start off. Yeah, you start off on what, Monday. Then you have 2 days off quite often here actually. You only have one game, I guess. Yeah, you have 2 days off twice. It looks like.
Yeah, between.
And then another like 3 days off at the end. Monday, Tuesday. Yeah, 2 days off at the end too. So you have 2 days off 3 times in this series.
Okay.
Which I like. I'm a big fan of it, which will benefit both teams because people are getting. But it will benefit more if the Penguins get in there, probably the Penguins, than it will the Predators, because the Penguins have guys who potentially could come back, where the Predators guys that are gone seem to be pretty much gone.
I was just about to say. I mean, you saw Ryan Johansson on crutches. You saw Mike Fisher there. They're not coming back. I mean, from what was reported yesterday, the thigh injury that Johansson had was an emergent situation that they had to go in and rectify. Otherwise, I mean, I don't know if it would have been like a near-death experience.
Nerve damage. I think nerve damage. They said.
Yeah, but they got it done right. But they got it done in quick order, and he should probably be ready for training camp or something close to that.
He showed a picture of himself. He was in the hospital, and Fiala was visiting him on crutches. Like,
jeez,
really something, really is something.
It's a war of attrition. It always is.
It really is right now, and that was never more apparent than this series.
Yes,
felt like this was as much as you can see. This your teams beating each other to hell.
The first thought was, geez, they lost these centers. They're dead in the water, and then you find out Gibson's hurt, and it's like, uh-oh.
Yeah,
that's an equalizer, man.
Gibson and Raquel was a big loss.
Yeah. No, that was huge too.
No, there's no question that was a big loss, and and it was crazy. So tonight we get on with the other series, and this is, of course, we talked a little bit about yesterday, so we don't have to get too much into it. But I really feel like this is something like I have a nice bet with Russ going that the Senators will win tonight.
It's not so nice for Kermit though.
No, but I think you can watch yesterday's show for details. But yeah, I do think the Sens are winning this one. Just because of the way this playoffs ebb and flow for some reason, just feels like this is the Senators' game.
They could win it the fact that it's desperation, but I honestly I
don't think so. I think Pittsburgh they're not going to fall for that. Right. Yeah, we're sort of complacent. We want to go back home thing. They've been through enough of these that I think they know how to.
They want to gut them like a fish. And
I think they know how to send out a team. I do.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, and we won't know until just before game time. Brassard, Carlson, CC, all these guys who left early. I mean, they may all be in the lineup for Game 6, but if they're missing one or two of them, especially Carlson, it's going to really hurt Ottawa's chances. They can only, if it's a 1-0 game and they get a goal from JG Pachot, then okay, fine. But I think that Pittsburgh's going to score more than one goal.
I mean, nothing is impossible, but I really think Pittsburgh will close it out. I do.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't think so, but we'll see. This Penguins team though does tend to buck the trend of a lot of things. So
they do,
and
including like this entire season. I mean, the way their season's gone.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how this Penguins team has done when they've had the chance to put teams away, and I would say it's about 50-50. I wouldn't say they're great at it though. I mean, I think that they've had situations in the past couple of years where, I mean, they could have put the Sharks away. They didn't. They could have put the Capitals away this year. They didn't.
But they're a little healthier right this moment.
Yeah.
They got 2 players back. One, the game before in Daly, who's now looking better, and then Rust being back was pretty big for them. So I think that was huge for them.
Yeah, I'd say that. I'd say it's true. I'd say this is so. The Preds are, by the way, also the first number 16 seed to ever reach the Stanley Cup final. Throw that out there. I think the Flyers were the 15th seed, I guess, that one year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw it. It was the Kings in 2012 were an 8th seed, and the Oilers in 06 were an 8th seed. They were. I don't think they were number 16. I think they were like 15.
Yeah.
Were the Flyers an 8th seed that year?
They were, but they were probably 15th as well.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember how that worked. They tied somebody and ended up in 7th for some reason. So
that's definitely how it worked.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens tonight with Ottawa. We'll see.
Ole Jokinen.
We'll see how this plays. No bitterness there, Russ. I know.
Sorry.
All right, Mike.
That's fine. That's
Remember,
fine.
you know, this is Cujo back in 2004.
Oh yeah. No, I know. All right. So what's our team today for the expansion?
It is the 3-time Stanley Cup champion Chicago Blackhawks.
Oh, here we go. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring up the Chicago Blackhawks on
the team that has the most no-move clauses, I think, of any team going into the expansion draft, which limits their flexibility.
Yeah, they had no flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, they gave a no-move clause to Artem Anisimov. So yeah. I mean, which I mean, I can understand Kane and Taves. I can even understand Hossa on that long-term deal, and the defenseman, but Anisimov I'm a little questioning on.
All right, so they have to pick 3 defensemen because they have 3 defensemen with no move.
They could go 8 skaters, but I mean, if they go 8 skaters, see, this is the thing. Here's the dilemma with the Blackhawks. The dilemma is, who do you want to lose? Do you want to lose Ryan Hartman or Marcus Kruger, or do you want to lose Trevor Van Riemsdyk? Because if you go 7-3-1, you protect the 4 forwards, you protect Kruger, Panik, and Ryan Johansson. And you protect the 3 and you leave Van Riemsdyk exposed. If you go 4-4, you protect Van Riemsdyk and you lose one of Kruger, Panik, and Hartman. Probably Hartman. If I was Vegas, I would take Hartman.
You're not going to lose Hartman.
So yeah.
TVR will be the guy that they expose. They're going to go the defenseman route for sure. And actually, can you scroll down on the forward list a little more? Okay. I
don't think they're gonna have any concern losing Tutu or Desjardins or.
Actually, I'm telling you, if it were me, no, I don't think I have a problem losing Tutu or Desjardins or even Rasmussen. If it were me, I wouldn't care about Panik. I would let Panik be on it. I would let him be exposed because chances are they're not going to take him anyhow, and I would keep Yurko because I still think there's more that you can get out of Thomas Yurko. And
yeah. I mean, the only reason I say, I mean, you might be right, but the only reason I say that they won't do that is because they just signed Panik.
I know.
Maybe.
But how much? You don't know if Vegas wants to pay that.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Maybe, but the thing is, he just scored 21 goals. So
whatever.
I know it was with Taves, but he scored, and he played well with Taves, which is not saying a hell of a lot, but I think that they're going to end up. They could do another thing.
I think if you took the gamble, they would not take Panik. That's my guess.
Yeah. They could very easily trade a prospect to try to get Vegas to take somebody that they want to lose. Like if they want to protect Van Riemsdyk, to trade a prospect. They don't have to protect. Trade a Tyler Mott or try to trade a John Hayden.
Actually, they're not going to trade John Hayden. There's no way. They like him way too much. He had 20 goals this year. He ain't going anywhere. But check the goalies, Zach. The Swedish goalie, is he exempt? Or is he too old to be exempt?
I'll tell you right now. Hold on. Let's see.
Because that could be a guy Vegas gets.
He's exempted. He's exempted.
He is, okay.
Yeah, the goalie that they're exposing is Jeff Glass.
Yeah, Jeff Glass.
They're protecting Corey Crawford. No, it'll be Jeff, because Jeff Glass is signed to a contract.
Yeah, right.
They signed him to an extra year simply to expose him.
I mean, the names I've heard of are Trevor Van Riemsdyk, like you talked about, and Desjardins as well, Andrew Desjardins, who I think is.
If they leave Yurko open, I think if you're Vegas, you're taking Yurko.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if they don't. If the funny thing is, Russ, they could if they don't qualify Yurko, Vegas can have him already. Vegas
They
could
could
have
take
him
him in
already.
the RFA.
Right.
Well, they can only protect 3 players because everybody else is
Right.
so you're looking at, and if you're not protecting Raymond Music, and I don't think they will, and I don't think they should, because I mean I don't know what you both of you think of Trevor Raymond Music. I don't think we've talked about it, but
He's okay. I think he's a good skater. I think he improved a lot from the guy that we saw in Flyers training camp, but in rookie camp. But I don't think he's great. I think he's average.
He's been really fortunate. I think he's been really fortunate in situations. Like I think that the fact that he has gotten lots of ice time because he's managed to stay healthy in Stanley Cup runs, has really done a lot for him.
I think that Van Riemsdyk is the type of defenseman that Vegas might take to flip, because he's a good 4-5, and he would help a team that's close, that needs defensive depth. But is he, he's 25 years old. Is he somebody that you're going to build around? Is he somebody that you want to keep around for 5 or 6 years? Right. I don't know if he is. That's, he's cheap. He's young. He's relatively young. He's, got a brother in the NHL who's a pretty good player. I could see them trying to keep him around as a number 4 because they like him, but they do have Gustav Forsling. They have a number of other defensemen in the pipeline that maybe they think can step up.
Yeah. I mean, what are your thoughts on Andrew Desjardins, though?
He's a UFA.
You're right.
No, he's not.
No.
According to this, he's a UFA. According to Cap Central, he's a UFA.
No, he's not actually. Let's see. Hold on one second. Let me see this. Is he?
Unless he signed a contract in the last few days.
I've heard people tell me that he was going to be one of those guys. That's why I'm curious.
Well, I mean, he could be, if he is a UFA, he could be signed by them.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, so I guess he's going to be a UFA. You're right, but it's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I still would go with Yurko because he has the speed. He's just not been able to put it together offensively. And if you're a team like Vegas, that's the one thing you can do is take a 24-year-old and take a chance on him. He's only played 100 NHL games. It's not like he's played a lot of games where you have an idea of what he really is. Detroit sort of gave up on him, and it's like, okay, you know what?
Yeah.
He can work out there.
And more than likely, Chicago is going to have to do what they've done in previous years and shed some payroll. That might mean them trading Kruger. He's making $3 million, or maybe Panik was signed to that contract simply to make that amount attractive enough that Vegas would take him. But
I think the emergence of Hartman and Hayden make Kruger expendable anyhow.
Yeah, I can see that. Or would they think about trading like somebody like Marian Hossa? Would they think about? I mean, if I was them,
they might think about it, but I don't know if there's a market for Marian Hossa.
I don't know if there's a market either, obviously, but there are teams that are going.
What does he have? 3 years left? Like, it's something ridiculous.
4
years. I mean,
4 years at $5.2 million. And the thing is, remember, he falls under the rule regarding cap recapture. So if they did trade him and he retired, they would get the cap hit. So I think they're going to keep him.
Nobody wants to take him based on that.
I think they're going to keep him, and when he's ready, he'll just retire. Obviously, maybe a couple years. He still can play. He's still effective, but I think the days of him being like a 25-goal scorer, top 6 forward, I think those are over with. If he's a third-line guy, they can get away with it, and some of the young guys like Hartman can move up into a top 6 role.
Right. So no likelihood we're looking at the forwards that they keep, that they protect, maybe Panik, Hartman, and Kruger.
Yep.
Yeah.
That would probably be the only players they would be able to keep.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, what do you have today for draft prospects, Russ?
Okay, so we've got Klim Kostin, who is a really interesting guy because the only reason I had a chance to see Klim Kostin play, and many haven't seen him play, is because a year ago at the under-18s when the Meldonian scandal was going on and the Team Russia moved up the under-17 team, he was like the best guy on the team. And he had like 4 points in 5 games. He was a terrific skater. He's 6'3", almost 200 pounds now. He's a right winger. But the funny thing is, since last year, he's only played 17 hockey games. And so again, what ends up happening with a guy like this is if you haven't seen him and you're doing draft rankings, you're going to start marginalizing a guy like this because you don't know much about him. He hasn't played a lot of games. You haven't seen him. Oh, he had an injury. Oh, and I'm worried about his injury history. Again, if I had $1 for everybody that's saying right now, I'm worried about Nolan Patrick's injury history, I'd be a rich guy. So they're going to say the same thing for Kostin. But I got to tell you, he's got good speed. It'll probably get better. I think he's one of those guys that can make one too many moves in traffic, but you could work on that. These days, we don't see too many Alexei Kovalevs or Hemskys anymore. Coaches seem to be able to coach that out of players and just say to keep it a little more simple. And I think if he does that, he'll be fine. Again, I was viewing him as a 17-year-old. You know what I mean? So, so he's a young player to begin with, but he can make great passes in traffic, and he's actually pretty defensively aware already. And so that's another good thing. So you look at the body type, you look at the speed. I've got him ranked 5th at the moment. He's going to be a guy that's all over the place because people just don't know him. But at the end of the day, this kid can play. And where's he going to play next year? I don't know. Is he going to be in the KHL? He's not really playing in the KHL. So I don't know. I mean, these are all big questions. But at the end of the day, the kid can play. And if you're gonna be patient and wait 2-3 years for a guy, you might have a real player here.
There is going to be a fear factor with Russian players right now because of the instability of the KHL and what's going on. Whether like if he's transferred to a team or a team in
that's what I'm saying. He could alleviate that fear by doing that.
If he does that, then I think that raises his stock in the draft. If he's still like mixed up there in the KHL and they don't know whether he's getting playing time, I think that could affect him dropping maybe a few slots.
If he's at the combine, that will be the number one question. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like his contract. He just recently signed a contract in 2016, so that's why he didn't join the CHL this year.
Yeah,
but. Maybe he can get out of the contract next year. I don't know. So that's going to be a big thing.
Well, if he's playing in the MHL and not getting KHL time, I mean, that's an excuse for him to jump to North America.
Right. And that's what I'm thinking could happen for him.
Sounds like a player could benefit from doing that.
Yeah.
Yes.
News note here before our rumor chart. The Colorado Avalanche have axed 3 of their assistant coaches, but Jared Bednar is staying on. They've fired the assistants Tim Army, Dave Farish, and Francois Allaire. Farish and Allaire were both on Randy Carlisle's staff in Toronto and were part of Patrick Waugh's staff. So essentially, Bednar has cleaned out the assistants that he inherited when he took over the job last August.
Which is fine. And he gets that right. I mean, to give him a real team.
Isn't he? He's the famous goalie coach, right?
Francois, did you say, or Benoit?
No, Francois.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So that's why
he's Waugh's goaltending coach and then Jaguar's goaltending coach in Anaheim.
Yeah, so he'll land somewhere. I mean, he'll land somewhere for sure. So some team that needs a goalie coach, like maybe Anaheim. Perhaps or something like that. To go back, with Carlisle again.
Anaheim just needs a backup goalie. That's what they need.
Yeah. It's all relative.
Well, Allaire did get fired by Toronto before Carlisle was let go, so maybe not. We'll see.
Yeah, I've heard. I mean, he's apparently like one of these mad scientist type goalie coaches. From what I've heard, he kind of rubs some people the wrong way, but can but is also obviously incredibly talented. So.
Yeah,
he has a definite style that he coaches. You could see. I mean, in the players he's coached are very similar. Okay, so let's move on to the rumor chart, which is on HockeyBuzz.com. We like to share a couple players with you a day from the rumor chart, and you can get the whole rumor chart by becoming a season ticket holder. We really appreciate those of you who have. Helps us a lot. All right, so starting today, I was going to go with James Van Riemsdyk, Joe Thornton, and Kevin Shattenkirk because a couple of these names have changed in the last couple of days. As far as what I've heard about them.
Hey, James Van Riemsdyk. We were just talking about that 2007 draft. Yeah.
Yep. And there's, we were talking about Trevor Van Riemsdyk, so I thought we should get into James. Still, as of now, my feeling is Toronto's going to keep him. But I do think, but there are plenty of other teams that would like a shot at him. So Toronto has options here if they want to trade him. The Islanders, the Devils, the Avalanche, and the Ducks as well. So to me, this is going to be one of the more interesting things to watch, and this feels like a draft day type trade to me if it happens.
I think if it happens, it's going to happen pre-expansion draft.
Okay.
Yes, I agree.
Because the Leafs right now, they don't have to protect Zaitsev. They have two defensemen in Gardner and Riley that they will protect. The third one is, could be Marchenko, could be Carrick. It's a defenseman who probably doesn't deserve to be protected, or I think they're going to make the deal for Van Riemsdyk for a defenseman before the expansion draft, so they protect the defenseman that they get back. I would put the percentage of him being with the Leafs at less than 15%. I'd say 10 to 15%. I think, Jersey, the Islanders, Avalanche all make okay sense. I think that Anaheim makes a lot of sense because you could see once Raquel went down, they were challenged offensively, and if you put him on the wing with either Kessler or Getzlaf, I think it would be probably a really great ad. And they have so many defensemen that deal makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know why. Why is there a rush? Explain why there's a rush to trade.
He's only got a year left in his contract at
Right.
$4.25 million, which is a very economical amount. So they can get a lot for him in return. There's skepticism of whether if he stays, if the league, he's liked and he likes Toronto, but it's a question of slotting in terms of his salary. I don't think Morgan Riley, Nazem Kadri took $5 million and $4.5 million on long-term deals. This is probably Van Riemsdyk's last chance to get a big contract. He's probably going to be asking for, around $6 million or a little more on a 5 or 6 year deal. I don't think Toronto is going to give him that. I think Toronto will say, if you want to stay, you're going to have to take a hometown discount like Kadri and like Riley did. And I don't think he's going to want to do that. I think he's going to want to make his money in free agency at next summer. And the Leafs, in that instance, since they have so much depth on the wing in their organization, they're going to say, let's use this to get a defenseman and promote our kids.
Here's what I would do. If I were the Devils, I would offer them Josh Jacobs and a second-round pick. Jacobs is a second-round pick from 2014. He played 49 games last year for Albany. He's not a huge offensive defenseman. A little more offense will come, but he's a big kid. He's 6'2", 200 pounds. He's a good skater. Yeah. And the Leafs can wait another year or two for him. They get something for Van Riemsdyk, who's only got a year left on his deal. Maybe he re-signs with New Jersey. I could see it. I mean, because Jacobs would be better than most of the guys in the Leafs organization.
I'm not sure that's enough, Russ.
He only has a year left on his deal, Mike. It's not like
I know. But the thing is, that other teams that trade for him can sign him as well. And if you're a team like Anaheim or a team like the Islanders who are deep on defense, that's why the Avalanche.
You're not getting Ryan Pulock for Van Riemsdyk. You're not.
Well, why not?
I'll tell you why not? Because the Islanders don't know if they could sign Van Riemsdyk beyond this year. That's why
you give him permission to talk to his agent. But I'm saying that's the price that the Leafs are going to be asking. They're going to be asking for Josh Manson from Anaheim. They're going to be asking for Pulock from.
Listen, Josh Manson, they probably could get that deal, but Josh Manson's not Ryan Pulock.
No. But Pulock is not fully established in the NHL. Van Riemsdyk has scored 30 goals, is an all-star, is an Olympian, and he's only 27 years old.
But what if Van Riemsdyk comes back and says to you, "Okay, I'll take a discount"? I mean,
Then they sign him.
What price? What price do you think that has to be for him to
$5 million?
Yeah.
That's what did Kadri get?
4.5.
And the other guy you said. And
Kadri's a number 2 center.
But I'm just saying, there's no team on earth that's going to give you a defenseman with years left on a contract for a scorer, which that's what he is. He's a scorer with 1 year left on his deal. That limits his value.
If Van Riemsdyk goes to the Leafs and says, "I'll take a 4 or 5 year deal at $5 million," I think they'll sign him, and I think he'll be happy. If it's anything more than that, if it's longer term deal or more money, I think he's being traded.
My guess is he's going to go to free agency, and that's why I think his value is going to be limited.
Well, Russ, the thing is, if he gets traded and the team that he gets traded to, like the Islanders, I think if he asks for $6 million, will sign him. They'll acquiesce to his contract.
I don't know about that.
I don't think teams trading for him are going to see him as a 1-year rental. I think the teams are.
No, but I don't know if they're giving him $6 a year. I don't know.
Okay, 5.75. I mean,
if I'm the Leafs, you give him the money for you go short term with him, and you go and I think you'd be able to. I think you give him $6 million for 2 years, and then
he's not, but he's not going to take that. This is his last.
He might take
28.
that.
At 28, he's not taking that. Actually.
Yeah, no.
There might not be any other. I mean, I don't know if he's not going to get a 6 year, $6 million a year contract. Anyway.
Not from the Leafs, no.
No, not from the Leafs. But I think he'll. I mean, if Thomas Vanek at over 30 got a 3-year deal at $6 million, I think Van Riemsdyk at 28 is going to get a 5 or 6 year deal at $6 million. I really do.
Maybe we'll see. The next up is Joe Thornton. Now Thornton, everybody kind of assumes that he's going back to San Jose for less money. He obviously wants to be there, wants to play there. But I've heard a lot of different conflicting things about this, as far as whether San Jose really wants to, completely lowball him or just.
Can I say one thing? I'm not trying to derail you. Vanek has 497 points. He's played longer in the NHL. Van Riemsdyk only has 240 points. He is simply a goal scorer. That's it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
That's why he got that money, Mike.
Yeah, Vanek's a different, yeah. And I don't think you get,
But it was at different parts of their career. We're talking about Vanek after he'd been traded to 3 teams and after he'd scored a bunch of goals with Buffalo. I mean, I think Van Riemsdyk is. I think he's come into his own. He scored almost 30 goals this year. I didn't play on Matthews' line, so you can't use that as an excuse. And he's. I mean,
right.
Anyway, Thornton. I don't get the Detroit thing unless. This is.
I know it doesn't make sense based on the. I mean, believe me, I understand why you don't get it. I mean, I didn't get it either when I talked to people. But
yeah.
The fact of the matter is that Detroit and Ken Holland, I think see this a little differently than mostly everyone else sees it in Detroit, as a definite. Like they're not starting a rebuild; they're in the middle of it.
Well, I think this is a come home Joe type of move because he's from just outside of London, Ontario, which is like it's like an hour and a half away from where he grew up.
Yeah.
So there may be family things, but honestly, I think this is all, any place other than San Jose is. Hey, we're getting interest from other places, San Jose. You better up your offer.
Right.
I think he wants to stay in San Jose. I think he's trying to get more money out of San Jose. But if I'm Doug Wilson, I'm going to say, I'll give you $3 million for a year or two. I'm not giving you $6 million anymore. You're too old. You're a secondary player now. That's what it is.
Here's the funny thing.
Mm-hmm.
So recently, Thornton was at the Barracuda game, and he's still limping around pretty good. His knee's wrapped up. I don't think he's going to have much value on the open market until he proves he's healthy. And I think he has to go back to San Jose for a year to prove he's healthy.
Right.
That's very possible. It depends, I guess, on what he wants to do. Like if he does want to play in Detroit, which might be the case, and he goes to Detroit and plays for less money. That's Dallas. Jim Nill also has always loved Joe Thornton. He might be willing to give him a 1-year short-term deal.
Does Joe Thornton fit as a
Dallas? No way. Dallas is not doing that.
Yeah.
No
Does Joe Thornton fit as a third line center behind Sagan and Spezza?
No way.
Good. Why couldn't he?
Because I'm telling you, that's not a Jim Nill kind of signing. I don't think he would do that.
I mean, the only thing that makes sense there, Russ, is if they move Sagan back to the wing.
It depends on what kind of money he's looking for, and Joe Thornton, I think, might be okay as a third line power play specialist.
But here's the thing. He's limping right now. He's got MCL damage. I'm not spending any kind of money on Joe Thornton. There's no way.
I don't think there is going to be a lot of money on it. I think it's more
what
about.
What are you talking?
It's more about $2.5 million. That's in that range.
$2 to $3 million for one,
and more about just where Joe thinks he could possibly win, where he wants to go, and where he can play. And who's going to sell the situation. Hitchcock loves Joe Thornton as well. I mean, there's a lot going on there.
I think there'd be a power struggle there because I don't think Joe Thornton would feel like in his mind that he should be playing behind Jason Spezza, where in reality that is where he is. But I think Joe Thornton would have trouble with that, with his ego. I do.
No, I don't get that.
Wait, Joe Thornton doesn't have an ego?
Joe Thornton has an ego, but I've never gotten the impression. I haven't seen it manifested in that kind of way.
Well, because it hasn't had to. He's the number one guy. Put him in another fish pond where they say, listen, you're playing behind Jason Spezza. He may not like that, Eck.
He's had other plays. His number one stats has been challenged in San Jose. I mean,
he goes to Detroit. He's their number one center. They moved Dylan Larkin down. Everybody's happy. If he goes to Dallas, there's a struggle there.
It's different. It's different when you've been in San Jose for years and years, and you played with Pavelski, and Pavelski has moved ahead of you on the depth chart. You can accept it because you know him and you played with him. But it's another thing to be parachuted into another team and be told you're the number 3 behind 2 guys who have never won anything.
I agree with that. I don't think he's leaving San Jose, but I have heard whispers from him. So
he's gonna use it as a decoy. That's what I think it is.
Perhaps. Kevin Shattenkirk. Here's a Shattenkirk update. This is changing a lot all the time.
Only 55% for the Rangers. I would have thought it'd be higher.
It was. It's down.
That's sarcastic. I'm being sarcastic.
Why?
Oh,
because everybody in the world thinks that.
No, everybody. I know, and I know, and the thing is, I heard Buffalo suddenly is in on this. Okay, so this is like this. The Sabres will do something like this. Okay, Mark.
Yeah. Jordan. Yes. Something stupid.
No,
but this is a function of a Terry Pegula team where he basically wants to be in on every big name, whether they get them or not. And this has been happening for years now.
Defense, they really need help on defense.
I know they really need.
Not a bad defense. I mean, he's going to be one of the best defensemen out there. So, and he's still young. I mean,
I know they need help on defense, but this is they went this way last year when they tried to get Shattenkirk before the draft, or they tried to get Cam Fowler before the draft, and they struck out on that, and then they ended up going to Plan C and getting Dmitry Kulikov, and that was an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah, but that like you said, they wanted Shattenkirk, and they'll still try to get Shattenkirk.
Right, but the thing is with where they are right now. Remember, they have not signed Reinhart. They have not signed Eichel to long-term extensions. They've got a lot of money tied up in Tyler Ennis and Matt Molson. They got a lot of dead money on this team. They can't go out and sign Shattenkirk for $7 million. They just can't do it. And if they do, I think they've locked themselves up in cap jail for the next half decade.
Right. I think the Devils will give him the highest offer.
Yes.
Because they have the most money to spend. They've got Elias dropping off the books.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Schneider's the only other guy that makes real money there. Nobody makes real money there anymore.
Yeah.
And Shiro has worked with Shattenkirk.
Yeah.
I think that's right now their top paid defenseman's Andy Green at $5 million, and after that it drops to Ben Lovejoy and John Moore. So you've got plenty of cap.
And nobody's long term. I don't even think Andy Green's that long term.
I mean, if the whole thing rests, Russ, on whether the Rangers are interested enough to open up the pocketbook and go full out for him.
Right.
If there are reservations, if they pull back a little bit, I could see him taking the money and going to Jersey and running with it.
Yeah, I think the Rangers will try and clear a spot. Jeff Gordon will definitely talk to him. Chris Drury will call him up. Like, they'll put out the whole red carpet thing, but in the end, they may not have the resources to do it because unless Shattenkirk is really going to take less money to play for the Rangers, it's probably not going to happen.
Here's the thing. I'm not throwing collusion at all. I'm not claiming collusion, but the Rangers are really good and have managed somehow to sign players that we hear they're going to sign ahead of time. And Shattenkirk was very definitive about what he was doing in St. Louis. He was very much to the point of, I'm not saying that he knew he could sign in New York, but I kind of feel like he did. Like, I kind of feel like he's, that I'm not saying the number's been worked out or anything like that, but some kind of mutual interest is definitely there that he knew about in some way, shape, or form to make this kind of stand he made in St. Louis. Because
I agree with that. I do.
It does have a little bit of a Brad Richards feel to it.
It does.
But the thing, what I think could happen here, and this is where the Ben Bishop deal that was made a week or so ago might be a signal of what happens here. Bishop was supposed to be a 5-year contract at $5.5 million, and they extended it to 6 years to make the cap hit under 5. You could see, say Shattenkirk, and Shattenkirk is 28 years old. Yeah. They could sign him to the max 7-year deal just to spread the cap hit out enough, Russ, that it won't be cap crippling to the Rangers.
Well, here's the thing. So Derek Stepan has basically full power of where he wants to go, where he doesn't want to go. Would Ranger management talk to him and say, is there a place you would want to go, and try and trade him to make room for Shattenkirk? Because that would be the most likely way. Everybody would say, get rid of Stahl and Girardi, but clearly the coach is not going to do that, right? So I'm pushing that off the table. So that money is locked in. So the next big money is Derek Stepan. And if you clear that out, then you could definitely sign Shattenkirk to whatever deal you want to sign him to. And so I think there's teams that would want Stepan. There's no question.
Specify long-term money. Short-term money, they could trade Nash, but Stepan signed for what, 5 years? 5 more years? Something like that? 4 more years? Yeah, long-term money. They'd have to clear
long-term money, right? Because, Nash is only 1 year money.
Right.
So, and they still want to try and battle for the cup.
Right.
And so, to me, Stepan is the guy that they could move out and try and do that, but they have to get a taker. And if they got a taker, it would be up to Stepan whether he's willing to do it. That's the thing.
Yeah, I can really see Vegas getting in on Derek Stepan. I've talked to people.
Yeah, but he probably doesn't want to play there. That's
probably doesn't want to play there. But that there are very few players that that will be available of his ilk.
I mean, do you see anybody take? Do you see anybody taking Stahl or Girardi at making 5-7?
They have no moves. They can't.
Yeah.
They can't do anything with them. Sater gave all those guys no moves. Stepan, Stahl, Girardi. So it's up to them if they go anywhere. Even Nash. Remember, Nash said, "I'm coming back to the Rangers this year." So it's like they can't do anything if Rick Nash doesn't allow them to. So they're in a spot.
Playing for the Rangers. I mean, that's the tough thing about this. Like, you're getting Stepan to leave. I mean, he's a no movement clause for a reason. Like, he wants to stay a Ranger. So
he does.
It's going to be hard. You're going to have to find a team that really can come in and sell this to him and say, like, this is this.
I mean, look, Kevin Kline could go to Vegas. That's a $2.5 million, I think, something like that. It's still not enough. They have a little bit dropping off the books. I just don't know if they have enough. I have to look at their cap number, but that's going to be a struggle. I mean, what would be the final thing to do that? They might have to buy out a player.
They may have to buy out a player. They may have to trade for Shattenkirk's rights so they can sign him to an 8-year deal too. That could possibly be possible.
So if they buy out a Stahl or Girardi,
I thought they couldn't do. I thought they couldn't do that. I thought you couldn't trade for somebody's rights to sign an 8.
I think you can.
You can't. No, but he. But his 8 wasn't with wasn't with Washington. That's the problem.
You have to trade for them before the trade deadline to sign an 8.
Yeah, Mike's right. You can't get 8 from Washington, but still 7, whatever.
That's why.
But they have to buy somebody out. So they would have to buy out a Stahl or Girardi. They wouldn't buy out Stepan, obviously.
They'd buy out Girardi because it's only 3 years left rather than 4. I mean, that would be 6 years of cap hit rather than 8.
So if you buy out Girardi and you only have a year left in Nash and you lose most of that salary and you lose Klein's salary,
right?
You could do it.
Yeah, they're going to try. I mean,
it's a tough go, but they could do it.
And they definitely like to. They
will try. There's no question.
Like players who want to play there, and this Shattenkirk has made it very clear that he wants to play there.
Yeah, Keith Leander wanted to play there too. Just saying.
I know.
Honestly, I think the most interesting story of the first 3 or 4 weeks of free agency is going to be veteran players who are UFAs and seeing where they go and take less money to play. Like the teams that are on the upward swing, and obviously I'm talking about Toronto. Teams like Toronto who, young players, young core, they need a couple veteran guys. And, you could finally see like Toronto actually being a magnet for players and players taking less, like they've taken less to play for Chicago or taken less to play for the Rangers. We talked about Justin Williams last week. I think Justin Williams could be a really good fit in Toronto. And I think there would be a couple other players who do the same thing.
But here's the thing, and this is what I have to ask Eck. So are we looking at a situation where instead of the Steve Stamkos, we're going to invite every team into our lair and listen to everybody? Is Shattenkirk literally going to sign with the Rangers at what's the time? 12:02 a.m. 12:01, and we're going to get an email.
Yeah, if you don't watch the show, you don't watch the show, it'll be done. If you don't watch the show by 12:05, it'll be over. Yeah.
Right. And that's the biggest name on the market, right? And so I think that is the feeling that's probably what's going to happen. I think that's what you'll see too. I think they're going to figure it out. And the only team that can go, of course, to talk to them ahead of time is Vegas, right? So,
right. And
Vegas will have a conversation with him because why not?
Yeah. He's the best free agent defenseman out there.
Now, would the Rangers give Vegas a prospect for the negotiating rights? Maybe. Because they can get a few hours in.
Can you trade that? I don't think.
Why not?
Can Vegas make that trade? I don't know if Vegas can trade the fact that they can talk to people early. I don't know.
Why not? I bet you they can.
Only if they choose him in the expansion draft. That they select Shattenkirk with 10 days left to go before he becomes a free agent. They could trade his negotiating rights.
That's right. We talked about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that would be the move for the Rangers if they really wanted to put the full court press on.
I agree with you. You know, the crazy thing about this is like we're all this knowledge that we have about the rules of the expansion draft is going to be so meaningless in like a month and a half. Like
I know. My brain
much about this. Like,
uncluttered after that.
It might not be if they expand again, which we think they're going to in a couple years.
Yeah, and
they'll change the rules again. That's the problem.
Yeah, I'm sure that team will be very favorable to that. So.
Yeah, and trust me, when that team happens, that will be the best expansion team ever. Mark it down.
Couple good quotes real quick before we get out of here. Peter Laviolette on what it's meant to win a third to take a third NHL team to the Stanley Cup final. His quote was great. He says, "It means I got fired a lot." That's why Laviolette has 3 teams there. And we probably heard the Subban quote about Nashville. He said, he's played in lots of A+ cities, but nothing has anything on Nashville. A great hockey city. And then this superhero moment where Victor Arvidsson last night was coming off the rink after he got hit by Richie. And here he's left with this mark on his head, which apparently Richie can leave a mark of an R on your.
Oh
head.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's pretty amazing. So it's like that Richie definitely has like some kind of like superhero power there to actually leave to brand him.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, that's all the time we have for today. Enjoy the games tonight. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you game tonight. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Maybe we'll have a Stanley Cup final to talk about. See you then.